Caleb Wright moved slowly across the dusty frontier plain, his boots sinking slightly into the fine red soil with each step. The sky above was pale, stretched in soft layers of pink and orange that marked the early morning, yet the heat already pressed down, heavy and unyielding. He carried a small toolkit in one hand and a water flask in the other, the bare essentials for a day's work. Caleb had come to this distant world alone, seeking work that few others would do. The planet was harsh, lonely, and largely ignored by larger settlements. It was not a place people came to by choice, only necessity, and Caleb had learned to survive in silence, to keep moving even when the wind bit at his skin or the dust covered everything in a thin layer of grit. The small outpost he maintained was little more than a shack built from scavenged metal and reinforced panels, patched over in several places after long seasons of wear. Caleb crouched to check the support beam at one corner. It had cracked further after the last windstorm. He worked methodically, measuring the width of the crack, testing the metal's resilience, and noting what he would need to repair it. Each motion was precise. His hands were steady, but the years of hard work left small scars and calluses that told the story of a life of constant labor. There was no one to notice his effort, no one to praise or scold. Caleb's reward came only from knowing he had done the best he could, that the structure might last another season because of his care. From a ridge several kilometers away, Mara Selen watched him. Her enormous frame was cloaked in muted shades that blended with the dusty landscape, making her presence almost invisible against the rolling hills of the frontier world. She was a widow, one of her species, known for her size, her calm authority, and the quiet sadness she carried after losing her mate in an earlier conflict. Her large eyes reflected the pale light, studying Caleb with patient curiosity. Unlike most who moved across the world, Caleb seemed undistracted by fear, by the harshness, or by the isolation. He moved with purpose, and that drew her attention. Few humans showed persistence without complaint, and even fewer carried such quiet focus in a place so unforgiving. Mara had watched many travelers before. Most were loud, either in thought or in action, desperate to prove themselves or escape the notice of those who might harm them. Caleb's stillness was different. It did not mask doubt or fear. It did not hide need. Instead, it seemed to radiate a kind of quiet determination, a sense that he continued not for glory, for reward, or for recognition, but because it was simply the right thing to do. Mara tilted her head slightly as she observed him. Even at her distance, she could see the care in his movements, the measured way he handled each task, the patience that seemed to extend to the world itself. For a being who had experienced loss and witnessed chaos, there was a subtle comfort in watching someone act with consistent kindness to the small details of life. Caleb bent to pick up a broken panel that had fallen from the edge of the outpost. He examined it, then carried it to the storage area he had built beside his shack. Every motion was deliberate. Every decision careful. Even in this place where no one could see him, he took pride in doing things right. Mara noticed the tiny gestures, the way he wiped sweat from his brow, the way he adjusted the metal to prevent it from scraping the ground, the way he paused to drink water even when the sun pressed harshly on him. There was no wastefulness in his actions, no shortcuts that might cause later problems. He seemed to anticipate every need, every eventuality, yet never let the weight of responsibility weigh him down visibly. She shifted slightly on the ridge, the ground beneath her solid yet uneven. Mara could have descended easily and made her presence known, but she did not. Part of her wanted to remain an observer, to see this human continue without interference. Part of her curiosity, though a quiet and persistent part, urged her forward. She felt a connection to him, subtle and abstract. He did not know she was watching, yet something in the way he worked, the way he lived, spoke to something she had not felt in many cycles. Loneliness was a constant companion for her, but in observing Caleb she saw not despair or fear, but determination. It was rare to see someone persist without need for recognition or reward, and even rarer to feel drawn to that quiet focus without any clear reason. Caleb paused and looked around, scanning the horizon. He often did this not because he feared attack but because the world was vast and unpredictable. A sudden storm or a loose rock could change everything. Even in moments of calm, he maintained awareness, a careful attention that had been honed through years of solitude. He adjusted the tarp over the storage area, securing it against wind gusts that were still gentle but capable of escalating. Every movement reflected experience, practice, and the quiet hope that he could continue another day, that he could maintain the small piece of the world he had claimed as his own. From her vantage point, Mara's attention never wavered. She noticed how he handled mistakes without frustration. A panel that had bent under wind pressure was not discarded angrily but adjusted, repaired, and reused. His thoughtfulness in small matters seemed to define him. Mara's own life had been full of loss, of responsibilities thrust upon her in ways she had not chosen. Watching Caleb manage his world with such steady care reminded her of things she had once known: patience, endurance, and the quiet satisfaction of keeping a small corner of life intact, no matter the scale of the larger universe. The wind shifted, carrying dust in thin waves across the open plain. Caleb shaded his eyes and adjusted his stance. He looked toward the ridge, though he could not see Mara from this distance. He felt, in a human way, the weight of isolation pressing against him. Even in solitude he worked to keep a sense of control, a sense of purpose. Mara recognized it immediately. Humans often gave up in quiet desperation when no one was watching, but not this one. Caleb's persistence was a steady flame, one that did not flicker easily. It was the kind of strength Mara respected, the kind of strength that quietly demanded notice even when unnoticed. Caleb paused again, setting the toolkit down and looking out across the plains. The sun rose higher and the temperature climbed, but he did not falter. Mara felt a faint admiration stir inside her. He was careful, deliberate, and resilient. She could sense his focus, the rhythm of his day, the way he allowed small pauses to rest and assess without losing momentum. He seemed entirely present in each moment, each task, each decision. Even his solitude carried intention. As the day continued, Caleb moved to the edge of a small ravine, checking structural supports he had added to prevent erosion. He leaned over the edge, steadying himself with careful handholds. His mind calculated angles, stress points, and material resilience. He did not rush, though he could have finished more quickly by taking risks. Every action was deliberate, every decision measured. Mara observed silently. Each careful motion spoke of experience, of respect for life, of a quiet refusal to be careless. Hours passed. Caleb ate a small meal from preserved rations and took water, never wasting either. He paused to look up at the sky, noting cloud patterns and shifts in wind. Even in basic actions, there was awareness, a mindfulness that Mara had rarely seen in other humans or aliens alike. The care he put into his work, the patience and the persistence, created a subtle sense of calm that Mara could feel even from a distance. His actions did not scream heroism or strength. They simply reflected a human ability to endure, to continue, and to care for one's surroundings in thoughtful ways. As the sun moved across the sky, Mara remained on the ridge, quietly marking the passage of time by the way shadows shifted and dust settled. She understood that Caleb's persistence was not just labor. It was his choice to continue despite isolation, despite the harshness of the world, and despite having no audience. Both Mara and Caleb were alone. Both had been overlooked by larger societies, and both had endured a kind of quiet loneliness that only those who persist in obscurity understand. Mara felt a kinship, though it was distant and subtle. There was recognition of effort, of patience, and of the small, often unnoticed courage required to survive and maintain purpose in such a world. Caleb returned to the shack as the light softened into the warm shades of evening. He replaced his tools, checked his repairs one final time, and adjusted the living quarters to be secure for the night. His actions were quiet, efficient, and unhurried. Mara watched him pause, noticing the small smile he allowed himself, a rare moment of satisfaction. It was simple, but it signified much. Endurance, resilience, and the quiet hope that tomorrow could be better, even in a world that tested every step. The first stars began to appear in the pale sky, distant and indifferent, yet somehow comforting. Caleb stood for a moment, looking up, appreciating the vastness, feeling a connection to a universe larger than his toil. Mara saw it too, from her vantage point, and something shifted within her. This human, struggling and alone, persisted with dignity. He made choices, faced challenges, and continued despite obscurity. She recognized in him a spark, a reflection of a value she understood deeply: endurance, persistence, and care. Both alone, both overlooked, both surviving in quiet ways, yet something about this shared persistence connected them across distance. Mara Selen did not move closer, and Caleb did not know she observed him. Yet the foundation was set: two lives at the edge of a vast world, marked by solitude, patience, and the gentle drive to continue. In silence, across dust and wind, they existed, resilient and quietly enduring. Adam Stone stood at the edge of the trading outpost, examining the rough sketches of old routes that had once connected small settlements across the frontier region. The maps were faded, marked with years of travel and neglect, showing paths that had grown dangerous or impassable. The wind shifted across the plateau, carrying dust and the faint hum of machinery that still worked despite age. Adam traced one route with his finger, considering where repairs were needed, where obstacles could be cleared, and where travelers would need guidance to avoid hazards. Each line represented a challenge and a solution, and Adam approached it not as a burden, but as a problem to solve, step by careful step. Laura then watched silently from a few paces behind him. Her enormous frame seemed to dwarf the simple outpost, yet she moved with deliberate calm. Unlike most of her people, she did not need to assert authority in every gesture or motion. Her presence alone was enough to influence those around her. She had offered Adam shelter, supplies, and protection, but she had not demanded obedience or blind respect. Instead, she trusted him to work with her, to think, to plan, and to act with integrity. That trust had not been offered lightly. Laura had learned from years of loss that trust was not a commodity, it was a careful choice, and she had chosen Adam. Adam's hands moved with precision as he added notes to the maps. He measured distances between waypoints, estimated travel times, and considered weather patterns that could alter routes unpredictably. He did not rush. Even the smallest error could have cascading consequences. He knew that travelers' lives depended not just on maps, but on clear instructions and well-maintained paths. Laura's presence beside him was steady, a silent encouragement. She did not interfere, but her awareness of the terrain and her knowledge of the region added depth to Adam's work. Where he measured time, she measured risk. Where he calculated distance, she calculated safety. Some of these paths are unstable, Adam said, pointing to a line that followed a narrow ridge. Erosion has worn away parts of the road, and travelers could get stuck if they don't take the detours. Laura leaned over the map, her massive shoulders blocking the low sun briefly. We can mark alternative routes, she said, and set up warning signs where it is most dangerous. Travelers will trust your guidance if they know you understand the terrain. Adam nodded, making a note. That's what I was thinking too. We can use temporary markers at first and then work on reinforcing the paths over time. They moved together along the maps, discussing logistics and planning solutions. Adam suggested temporary shelters for travelers who might be caught in storms, small caches of water and food for emergencies, and ways to signal danger without relying on technology that often failed. Laura offered suggestions based on her knowledge of local conditions, which slopes were prone to sudden landslides, which river crossings could become treacherous during high tides, and where predators sometimes traveled at night. The dialogue between them was steady, deliberate, and respectful. Neither spoke over the other, neither dismissed the other's ideas. Their trust grew with every shared decision, every practical solution. After finishing the initial review, Adam and Laura moved to the old workshop area of the outpost. Rusted machinery and decaying structures had been left by travelers long gone. Adam examined each piece carefully, testing motors, checking gears, and noting what could be repaired and what would need replacement. Laura moved alongside him, offering her strength to lift heavy components and her expertise to stabilize fragile structures. Together, they worked with a rhythm that balanced human ingenuity and alien physicality. Adam's careful hands and mechanical knowledge complemented Laura's strength and spatial awareness. Where one struggled, the other provided support. Problems that might have taken days alone were resolved in hours through collaboration. Some of these old systems could last another decade if we reinforce them properly, Adam said, wiping sweat from his brow. I'll need to replace certain parts, but the foundations are solid. Laura nodded. I can gather materials from nearby areas. My people can assist without interfering with your work. You focus on the technical repairs and we will provide support. Adam smiled, feeling a sense of ease that he had rarely known. Most people he had met would have either demanded full control or dismissed his ideas entirely. Laura's willingness to work alongside him as an equal, valuing his knowledge and judgment, created a sense of partnership that strengthened his resolve. He was no longer alone in the frontier. Together they could accomplish far more than he could have imagined. Hours passed as they repaired machinery, organized storage, and rebuilt sections of the workshop. Adam explained how each system functioned, teaching Laura the delicate operations that required careful human handling. Laura listened intently, asking questions when necessary, never impatient, always attentive. Her presence encouraged him to explain thoroughly, to think critically, and to approach each task with the attention it deserved. In turn, Adam noticed how Laura's approach to challenges was different but equally effective. She thought in broader strokes, anticipating difficulties and adjusting plans preemptively. Their skills complemented each other perfectly. Adam Stone worked quietly in the sparse outpost, repairing a broken communications panel that had been inactive for years. Dust clung to the edges of the equipment, and the wind outside rattled loose panels against the metal walls. The frontier world was harsh and unforgiving, and Adam had grown accustomed to solitude. Most people who came to this place stayed only briefly, often leaving as quickly as they arrived. He had learned to rely on himself, to measure every step, every decision, and every repair with care. Mistakes could be costly here, and survival depended on precision, patience, and persistence. He wiped sweat from his brow and adjusted a panel that had slipped out of place. The machinery hummed faintly under his touch, responding to careful calibration. He felt a small sense of satisfaction. Even the smallest success mattered when days were long and help was rare. He had long since abandoned the hope of recognition. Work done well was its own reward, and that was enough for him. Yet, as he straightened, he sensed a presence that was unusual, something large and deliberate, yet not threatening. He froze for a moment, considering whether to turn, whether to hide, whether to brace for confrontation. In a world as remote as this, danger often arrived quietly. A deep shadow fell across the outpost, and Adam finally looked up. Standing at the edge of the open space was a figure immense in scale, her form outlined against the rising sun. She was an alien, far taller and broader than any human he had ever seen, yet there was calm in her posture. She made no aggressive gestures. There were no weapons raised, no signs of hostility. Instead, she moved with measured steps, a deliberate approach that suggested purpose and patience. Adam remained still, unsure whether to be wary or curious. She stopped a few meters away, far enough to allow him space but close enough that her presence could not be ignored. Her eyes were large, reflecting the soft light of morning, and her gaze was steady. Adam noted the ease of her movements, the way she did not demand attention but commanded it naturally through presence alone. She spoke in a clear, measured voice. "Human," she said. Her tone was calm, deliberate, without threat. "I need a partner." Adam blinked. "A partner?" His voice sounded small even to his own ears. He had lived so long alone that the concept of partnership felt strange, almost unreal. He took a cautious step back, though he did not move to flee. Curiosity mixed with instinctive caution. I'm not sure I understand." "I do not seek to harm you," she explained. Her voice carried an authority that did not intimidate but encouraged attention. "I seek someone to help guide my people. To plan, to protect, to work together." She paused, allowing him to process her words. Her hands were relaxed, her posture open, her presence imposing yet composed. It was clear that her offer was genuine, free of hidden motives, and entirely voluntary. Adam's mind raced. He had always assumed that survival required solitude, that any interaction with someone so powerful would inevitably involve danger, manipulation, or dominance. Yet here was someone offering collaboration, respect, and recognition without conditions. His surprise was evident not just in his expression but in the small shift of his body, the hesitation before he responded. He had never been seen this way before. His skills, his persistence, his quiet reliability acknowledged by someone from another world. "I don't know what to say," he stammered. The words felt inadequate to convey the mixture of emotions rising in him. Disbelief, curiosity, and a faint glimmer of hope. To be recognized, to be asked for help, to be trusted. These were things he had long thought impossible. For years, he had measured his worth by his ability to survive alone, to manage tasks in silence, to keep going when the world seemed indifferent. And now, in one calm and deliberate encounter, someone saw value in him. Laura Sellen stepped closer, her massive form moving with the grace of one accustomed to commanding attention. Yet there was no aggression. Her expression remained neutral, open to his response. "I do not ask for loyalty. I do not demand obedience. I seek a partner who can think, who can act, who can plan with me. Together we can guide our people through this region safely and effectively." Her words were simple, yet the implications were profound. She was offering a choice, an opportunity, and recognition all at once. Adam swallowed hard. His chest tightened slightly, a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. "And you think I can do that?" he asked, almost whispering. It was not arrogance in his voice, but uncertainty, tempered by years of solitude and self-reliance. He had always believed that only those with resources, power, or connections were truly valued in the broader world. Yet here was a being of strength and influence, offering him a place beside her. The thought was dizzying. "I do," she said simply. There was no hesitation, no doubt. The certainty in her voice was like a solid weight in the air, grounding him. "I have watched you. I have observed your work. Your persistence, your care, your focus, they are rare. You can contribute. You can make a difference. Her gaze did not flinch. She did not question his worth. She stated it, plainly, and without expectation of response beyond consideration. Adam took a step forward, testing the boundaries of the encounter. His eyes studied her, searching for signs of trickery or manipulation. He found none. The sincerity in her tone, the calm assurance in her posture, the absence of threat, all of it spoke more than words could. He had been overlooked by many, dismissed by most, and ignored by almost everyone in his world. Yet now, recognition came not as flattery, but as a practical, honest acknowledgement of his abilities. I've never been asked to help anyone like this before, he admitted, his voice trembling slightly, though he tried to steady it. Most people expect me to work alone, to survive alone. No one has ever offered a partnership. The words felt awkward, heavy with years of unspoken loneliness and quiet effort. Yet he spoke them because he trusted instinctively that this being, this giant, imposing alien, meant exactly what she said. Then we start with trust, Laura replied. Not loyalty, not obedience. Trust. You choose to join me. You choose to help guide. You choose to contribute or you walk away. Nothing else is required. I do not demand more than your presence, your effort, and your decision to work together. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. There was space in her tone, space for thought, space for decision. She did not press. She did not rush. She allowed him the dignity of consideration. Adam felt a warmth in his chest, a small, unfamiliar spark of possibility. Recognition. Respect. Value. These were things he had long thought unattainable, especially in a world so harsh, so unforgiving. And yet, here it was, offered freely, without expectation beyond the choice to accept or decline. His mind raced with possibilities. The chance to work with someone capable, the opportunity to see a broader world, the knowledge that his skills mattered beyond survival. For the first time in many cycles he felt the stirrings of hope. Adam Stone woke to the pale light of the frontier sun, feeling the rhythm of the outpost settled around him. Months had passed since he and Laura Venn began working together, and the harsh, chaotic frontier was gradually transforming. Dust still rose from the unpaved roads and wind carried grit across the landscape, but structures were reinforced, pathways were mapped, and small systems that had been abandoned for years now functioned reliably. Adam moved among the buildings, checking machinery, speaking with workers, and noting areas that still needed attention. Each step was deliberate, measured, and marked by confidence he had not possessed before. Where he had once doubted his impact, he now saw evidence of it everywhere he looked. Laura walked beside him, her massive frame moving with quiet authority. She had returned from gathering supplies with local laborers and now observed the functioning outpost with satisfaction. Her purpose, which had been clouded by loss and isolation, had returned in full measure. She guided workers, suggested improvements, and monitored the progress with calm attention. The partnership between them had grown into more than coordination. It had become trust built on repeated successes and shared responsibility. Adam had learned to anticipate her methods, and she had learned to respect his problem-solving and creativity. Together, they had begun to stabilize the region in ways neither could have accomplished alone. Early in the day, a small group of traders arrived at the outpost. They carried goods for exchange, some from nearby settlements, others from distant worlds, and they observed the outpost with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Previously, the frontier had seemed unstable and dangerous, but now, thanks to Adam and Laura's efforts, the traders felt safety. They followed established routes and accessed provisions, guided by clear markers and organized systems. Adam greeted them with measured words, explaining conditions and safety measures, while Laura stood nearby, her presence both reassuring and commanding. It was evident that the traders respected the order that had been created. Adam's confidence was evident in every action. He moved swiftly yet carefully through the workshops, adjusting machinery, checking the supply inventory, and offering suggestions to workers when needed. He no longer doubted his contributions. Where he had once questioned whether his efforts mattered, he now saw immediate results. Systems functioned efficiently, trade routes were maintained, and communication with nearby settlements ran smoothly. His decisions, once hesitant, were now firm and deliberate. He recognized patterns in the frontier environment, anticipated problems, and proposed solutions that often prevented issues before they arose. Confidence radiated from him, visible in posture, tone, and actions. Laura observed him with a quiet sense of approval. When they first met, Adam had been uncertain and cautious, hesitant to take on responsibilities beyond his immediate work. She had offered guidance without pressure, allowing him to discover his own abilities while supporting him when challenges arose. The results were visible now: a competent, capable partner who contributed ideas, energy, and leadership. She felt a sense of renewed purpose as well, her role expanding beyond overseeing territory to mentoring, collaborating, and shaping the region's future. The balance between their strengths created a partnership that had become central to the stability they were building. Through the following cycles, Adam and Laura implemented new systems for trade and communication. They coordinated resource distribution, established shelters along key travel routes, and developed safety protocols for workers and travelers. Each improvement reinforced their growing reputation. Local settlers who had been skeptical at first began to acknowledge the partnership, seeking guidance, reporting issues, and respecting the structure Adam and Laura had put in place. Gradually, the region itself began to change. Travel became predictable, risks were minimized, and the community began to feel a sense of security that had been absent for decades. One afternoon, a caravan of travelers arrived, facing severe weather conditions along their journey. Adam assessed the situation quickly and coordinated with Laura to provide shelter, food, and medical attention where needed. The travelers, initially wary, responded with gratitude and respect. They marveled at the organization, noting how effectively the partnership between human and alien had created a safe haven in a world that was previously hostile. Adam's clear instructions and Laura's calm authority combined seamlessly, demonstrating to all that collaboration and trust could produce results beyond what either individual could achieve alone. As weeks turned into months, word of their successes spread. Traders, settlers, and neighboring communities began to acknowledge the stability and order of the region. Their respect was earned gradually, through consistent effort and fair management. Adam's confidence continued to grow, not from ego, but from seeing tangible results of his actions. Laura's satisfaction deepened, as she witnessed the positive effects of her guidance and the benefits of working alongside a partner who complemented her skills so effectively. The once fractured region now functioned with purpose and direction, sustained by shared effort and cooperation. During routine inspections, Adam noticed minor issues before they became major problems. He adjusted supply lines, recalibrated machinery, and ensured that each system maintained efficiency. Laura supported him with oversight, making strategic decisions where long-term planning was needed and addressing environmental risks. Their communication was fluid, their strategies aligned, and their decisions mutually respected. Workers and travelers alike observed the synchronization, recognizing that the partnership was not based on dominance or fear but on competence and trust. The impact was evident: a stable, functioning region where people could rely on each other and the systems in place. Adam reflected on his personal growth. When Laura had first approached him, he had been surprised and uncertain, unsure of his own value. Adam Stone stood at the edge of the landing platform as the morning light spread across the frontier world. The air was cool and the ground no longer shook with chaos or fear. Ships moved in steady patterns, workers followed clear paths, and the outpost breathed with calm order. Adam watched the movement and felt a quiet sense of pride. This place had once been ruled by uncertainty, but now it reflected cooperation and shared effort. He knew this change was not the result of force or control, but of trust built step by step. He remembered the man he had been when he first arrived on this world. He had been careful, quiet, and always prepared to be alone. Fear had shaped many of his choices, even when he did not admit it to himself. Fear of failure, fear of being unseen, fear of becoming nothing more than a forgotten worker on the edge of space. That fear had kept him safe, but it had also kept him small. Now, standing in the open light, he realized he no longer lived by fear. He had chosen cooperation, and that choice had changed everything. Laura Venn approached him from behind, her heavy steps steady and familiar. She no longer moved like a lone guardian carrying silent grief. Her posture showed purpose, and her presence felt grounded. The long shadow of loss that once followed her had softened, replaced by a calm strength built through shared work. She paused beside Adam and looked over the outpost, observing the people moving below. Her people and his now worked together without tension. It had not been easy, but it had been worth every effort. Laura remembered the time before Adam entered her life. She had been a widow not only in name but in spirit. Responsibility had weighed on her alone, and each decision had felt like a burden carried without rest. She had believed strength meant standing alone and never showing doubt. Yet isolation had drained her hopes slowly, until even leadership felt hollow. Meeting Adam had changed that path. Through shared effort, she had rediscovered trust, and through trust, she had found hope again. Adam turned slightly and met her gaze. There was no distance between them now, no uncertainty. They spoke often without words, understanding shaped through months of cooperation. "The supply routes are ready," he said calmly. "The next group should arrive by nightfall." His voice carried confidence, not pride. He spoke as someone who knew his role and trusted his judgment. Laura nodded, satisfied. She had learned to rely on his planning and insight, just as he relied on her experience and strength. Together they walked through the outpost, greeting workers and travelers alike. People no longer looked at Adam with doubt or dismissal. They greeted him with respect, asking questions and listening to his answers. Laura observed this quietly, feeling a deep sense of balance. Adam had grown into his role not by seeking power but by earning trust. She saw in him a partner, not a subordinate, and that equality mattered more than any title. As the day moved on, a council meeting gathered representatives from nearby settlements. Adam and Laura sat side by side, not above the group but among them. Plans were discussed openly, and decisions were made through agreement rather than command. Adam spoke when needed, offering clear ideas shaped by experience. Laura listened and added her perspective, guiding the discussion without dominating it. The council ended with shared understanding, and the representatives left with confidence in the future. Adam reflected on how different his life had become. He no longer measured success by survival alone. He measured it by the safety of others, by the strength of systems, and by the trust between people. Cooperation had given him purpose. It had allowed him to grow beyond fear and doubt. He knew challenges would return as they always did on frontier worlds, but he no longer faced them alone. He had chosen a future built on shared effort, and that future felt solid. Laura felt the same certainty. Hope had returned to her not through grand victory, but through daily work done together. She had learned that trust was not weakness, and that sharing responsibility did not lessen her strength. It multiplied it. Through Adam, she had seen another way to lead, one shaped by patience and respect. That understanding had healed parts of her she thought were lost forever. Later, as evening settled, Adam and Laura stood once more at the edge of the outpost. The sky shifted with color and lights flickered on below. The world felt alive, steady, and connected. Adam spoke softly. "I never thought I would belong anywhere like this." His words were honest, free of shame. Laura listened carefully, understanding the weight behind them. "You belong because you chose to stand with others," she replied. "Not because of strength alone but because of trust." Adam nodded. He knew she was right. Belonging was not given by place or title. It was built through action and choice. Their partnership had become a quiet example for others. Human and alien, different in form and history, working as equals. Fear had once shaped the frontier, but cooperation now guided it. Adam and Laura did not seek to be symbols, yet their actions spoke clearly. People learned that shared effort could replace suspicion, and that trust could build stability where force could not. As the stars emerged overhead, Adam felt a deep sense of calm. The future was still uncertain, but it no longer felt threatening. He had chosen cooperation, and that choice gave him strength. Laura felt hope steady within her, no longer fragile but firm. Together they moved forward, not as leader and follower but as partners. Two lives, once isolated and overlooked, now walked the same path. Their steps were equal, their goals shared. The frontier world reflected their choice, standing as proof that trust could shape destiny. And as night settled fully, Adam and Laura remained side by side, ready to face whatever came next together.